Hey guys, welcome back to the Hammercast. I'm your host, Kenneth Smith, and again, I'm joined by the co-host of this fantastic show, David Stidham. How you doing, Dave?
I'm doing great, Kenneth. How you doing, man?
Hey, I'm doing good.
It looks like you're perked up there at the Jack Daniel's bar.
Well, you know what? This episode right here, this is our From the Pit segment, where we talk about all things barbecue, tailgating, and things like that. And it felt better to me to be in the Jack Daniel's bar than it did to be just at home. You know what I mean?
Well,
hey, it looks
being
like
there
you're
is
getting,
always.
it kind of looks like you're a little too close to the smoker yourself, but I don't want you to get burned.
Hey, but look at that meat. Look at the color. Believe it or not, there's no filter on that picture.
Yeah, well, it looks really good. Dave, there's something really I've been wanting to know about and hear about. I go to barbecue restaurants anywhere that I go, right? Anytime I'm traveling, if I'm going down the interstate, I look for those billboards that say barbecue X coming up. But every time I go there, I'm always curious, and I try to ask the pitmaster there if he's available, or I'll just ask somebody that's working, hey, what kind of wood are you using? Because when I'm at home, I really don't know. I've got a bag of apple chips. I've got some hickory. I've got some mesquite. I've got this and that. But it's almost like whatever I feel like that day. And I don't really know what goes really well with what. So that's what we're going to talk about today. I know that you've got some awesome insight into this. And hey, what do you got, man? What should I use on what things? Tell me what I can do to make it better.
Actually, Kenneth, I'm glad you brought this up. This will be a great segment for all of our viewers and listeners, because people do take for granted what wood flavors to use and what tastes best. It's almost like pairing a good wine with a cheese or whatever. You got to pair your woods with the right meats, because let's just face it, all smoke is not created equally. Okay. Right. And we got to understand what smoking does in the process. Smoke equals flavor, color, and the bark. Okay. And so it has a very large impact on all of those things. And you want to make sure you get it right. There's typically 3 categories of woods for smoking meats or cheeses or other things. You can smoke a lot of things that you don't even realize you can smoke. You can smoke veggies and all kinds of stuff. I make a smoked mac and cheese, which is really good. But typically you got your mild woods, okay? And your mild woods and this is really important for backyard guys. This is important for aspiring pitmasters. This is important for competition barbecue guys. You need to understand how this wood works, what to use, whether you have a pellet grill. Those are very popular, the Traegers and so forth, or a true stick burner or an electric that you use chips. Understanding your wood makes a huge difference in the quality of your meal. And so typically you got your milds. Now your milds are typically used for poultry. They're used for fish, really, really good on fish, those kind of things. Like you ever go to a restaurant and you have a smoked salmon? Yeah. Typically that would be done with a very light wood called alder. And
I've heard of alder
so
wood, of course.
So when you're cooking poultry, now we're going to get to this a little later because I go completely against that when I talk about my poultry and what I use. And I'll talk about that. But typically those are your mild woods. Then you have what we call medium woods. And medium woods are your fruit woods and your apple, your cherry, your peaches, those types of woods. And they're really good for poultry as well and for pork. And I'm going to jump into that cherry wood though and talk about that, because you do not want to use cherry for poultry. And I'll tell you why in a minute. And then you go to your stronger woods, and your stronger woods are used for your thicker and bigger cuts, like the pork butts behind me, your briskets, beef ribs, those pork ribs, your larger cuts and your heavier cuts and your darker colored meats. But here's the biggest thing to know about when it comes to selecting what kind of wood to use when you're smoking. Don't obsess over it. None of them are wrong. It is preference. And so don't lose your mind over it. However, if you get it right, it just makes it better.
Yeah.
Okay. And so let's jump into it. First and foremost, we'll jump into the mild. I already mentioned alder. Alder's a light, subtle, natural sweetness to the wood. It's great for salmon, all fish. As a matter of fact, almost any restaurant you go to where you get a smoked salmon, it's on alder wood. And then you got another really light one. This is very underrated, and that's a maple wood. Okay, and maple wood's also mild. It's sweet, really good with poultry, veggies, cheese. We talked about. But one of the things to take into account with maple wood is it will darken your meat.
Okay. I would have thought it the other way around. Like
it will darken your meat a little bit in appearance, but it's also a great mix in. If you're going to cook with, let's just say you're cooking something with hickory, you want to add a little subtle sweetness, something mild and sweet that's really, really got this little unique flavor. Throw in a little chunk of maple and mix it up a little bit. But those are examples of some of your mild woods. And then you got these mediums. This is the wheelhouse for a lot of guys with the smaller grills. Medium, apple is a very, very, very popular wood. You can do a lot of things with apple. It's mild, it's fruity, it's sweet, and it's really good on poultry. It's good on pork. Smoking ham with applewood is fantastic. And even those who like lamb, applewood is a really versatile wood. And
I have never
got
tried
a lot of
to do
flavor
lamb
to it.
before. That's
You know what?
I would. I love it. Lamb
I'll
chops.
tell you what, lamb chops, even game, now big game, I like to use a little bit stronger woods, and we could talk about that.
Okay.
But I will tell you that apple is not my favorite with beef. Okay.
Okay.
But if you were to take a little bit of apple, it's also a great mixing wood.
I see.
The other medium wood is cherry that I use a lot, but I don't use it as a wood by itself. It's always a mix. Okay. It's always a blend. I never use straight cherry, and I never use cherry on poultry. I talked about that a minute ago. The reason is this cherry does leave a rich, almost a mahogany color to your meat. And if you cook poultry, it almost looks like it's raw because it puts that red tint on chicken.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Have you ever seen that where you've seen
Yes.
and even if you smoke burgers and things like that, you're going to notice that there's a little pinkness to it, but it's not raw. That's what cherry wood will do.
I see. Okay.
And so a lot of people don't realize that. And so even though it's a great all-purpose wood, it's very sweet, it's mild, it's wonderful on pork and beef, but only as a mix-in. I always use that fruit wood, whether an apple or cherry or peach, as a part of my wood combination with your harder woods, such as oak, hickory, or pecan.
Okay.
And we're going to jump right into those in just a second. But remember, these medium woods, they're great on their own, but I always use them as a mixer. Okay. Now, stronger woods, and this is what is more my wheelhouse because I cook the big cuts of meat like you see the pork shoulders behind me. Oak is just above the cusp of medium. It actually could be a medium heavy, but it's not a full heavy. It's a stronger wood. It burns really hot. Okay, it burns faster than some of your other woods, but it's a great for blending as well. It's very versatile and it works on all meats. Post oak, white oak. There's a few different varieties of oak. They're all really good. You can't go wrong with oak. Of course, your most traditional wood that you have anywhere is smoked hickory wood, or just hickory wood. If you and people associate hickory with the most common thing they associate it with is bacon. Of course, every time you go to the grocery store, you see smoked bacon. Yeah. Right. Exactly. It has that really good smoky smell to it. Yeah. Very traditional. It's strong. It's pungent. It's sweet. It's very smoky. And I use it for a lot of different things. But you got to be careful using hickory. Okay. Because hickory is so strong. If you happen to over smoke meat, and that's going to be another class we're going to have on the science behind smoking meat, you do not want it can get bitter. There's a Creole sit taste, and you don't want to over smoke with hickory. Okay, so you got to be very careful. Okay. And then you have my number one wood of all woods that I use as much as I can, and that's pecan. And I love pecan wood because it's kind of in between oak and hickory. It's kind of right down the middle. It's not too harsh. It's more forgiving, but it doesn't burn as hot as the oak, and it's got a great flavor.
It's kind of the wheelhouse, huh?
Pecan wood. If you can get pecan wood, it is the one you want to use. And it's actually part of the hickory family, but it's a little calmer, and it's a more forgiving. It actually burns cool, and it imparts, a really delicate flavor, but it's really, really good on pork. Okay. And then there's the harshest or the strongest wood of all, and you don't really see it outside of Texas, and that's mesquite. And mesquite is a very hard wood. It burns really hot. It almost produces a sticky residue, very, very smoky. It only takes a little bit, and it goes a long way. I'm not afraid of it, but I'm just not a big fan of mesquite. If you're going to smoke with mesquite, use it in small little chunks, and mix it in with something else.
Okay.
And you can really, really dial up your flavors. You could play with it, but it's not something that I would use.
Not straight. Yeah.
No,
not straight. Okay.
No. Some people in Texas, they love it, but number one, it's just hard to get. And so, but those are kind of the mild, medium, and strongs. There's a lot of different ways to mix and blend, but believe it or not, they do affect flavor, they do affect color, and they do affect your bark.
Okay.
And so, but
hey, Dave, I've got an idea. Maybe we could put a scale, or maybe we could come up with one, and we'll just put it right on hammercast.com.
I've already got it.
Oh, awesome. Yeah.
I've got a really nice sheet which has all the different woods and all the different meats associated with them.
Okay.
I will find a way to put this in where everybody can download that and use it for themselves.
Perfect.
And now, if anybody wants to know what I actually use when I compete.
Well, it's funny you say that, because I was just about to ask. For those of you that don't know yet, which if you've paid any attention to our podcast or our videos or anything at all about Hammercast Network, you already know that David is a national barbecue champion. He's a national award-winning pitmaster. He owns several restaurants in the barbecue world. So I was going to ask him, but he started to bring it up. He's told us all these good things.
I'll talk about it.
What do you use? Because you do these competitions too, right?
Oh yeah. Yeah. We compete all around the country, and I use the exact same blend of woods in my restaurants that I do when I compete. Why? Because it works.
Well,
it's a lot harder doing it the way I do, because there's a lot of little things I have to do, and there's I have to throw one chunk in at this point. I have to throw in 2 logs at this point when I'm cooking these. I have to finish it with this, and I have to close the vent so that it gets extra smoky at the last second. There's all kinds of little tips and tricks to impart flavors onto your meat when you're trying to compete. I try to repeat that in my restaurants. And now here's where I'm going to go completely off the rails. Okay, for all of you guys listening and watching this, I told you guys that hickory is very bold,
fast burning. Yeah.
I'm sorry, I thought I lost you there for a second. We might have had a hiccup, but
no, we're good.
Can you hear me?
Yep.
Perfect.
Yeah, go ahead.
Anyway, hickory is a very strong wood. It's very traditional. It's very bold, but it's also, if you're not careful, you can over smoke with it, and it's a little less forgiving. Okay.
Right.
And I also told you that poultry is really something you want to cook with a mild wood, right? In my restaurant, all of my chicken and turkey are cooked with hickory. And people say, well, why? Why do you use the hardwood in the less forgiving wood for something like chicken? The reason is chicken is not in the smoker very long, and I want to get that traditional smoke flavor on it. We cook hot and fast with our chicken, and so it's we watch it very carefully. We also
do that to try to keep it moist.
Well, we do. We first of all, we brine even our chicken and our turkey, and a lot of people, it's just too hard for them to do it. We do it. It's harder for us to do it that way, but people like it better, and it just produces a better quality product. So we brine, and then so you already got all that extra, moisture inside the chicken, and then and I'll show you this on my next episode is the trick to cooking chicken that nobody uses, but it's just common sense.
The tricky chicken?
No, we'll get into it later. People are going to have to watch the next episode. We're going to have some fun with these episodes. But anyway, that hickory smoke is a little strong, but you know what? It really gets that flavor in that chicken quicker than if I was using a lighter smoke. I'm not cooking on a grill. I'm using a smoker and I'm cooking hot and fast. So I use hickory on chicken. And I don't recommend everybody do it. We've been doing it for years. We've mastered it. But that's just what we do.
David,
now for pork, go ahead.
Yeah, no. Well, what I was going to say, and maybe we can come back to this here in just a minute when you finish talking about how you do it. But I actually had a question about soaking the wood. If we're
I don't do that.
If we're supposed to do it or not. Because if you look on websites and stuff, it tells you to soak it and then soak it for X amount of time, and then it'll do this, it'll do that. And so straight from the Pitmaster, you're saying no.
Well, I mean, if you're using a very small, like smoker that requires chips, sometimes those chips are so small, they're dried out. And so you want to add moisture to them. I hate using wood that's really dry because that's all the flavors in the, the pulp.
So it's burning out faster than it can.
I use now I'm not saying the wood I use is green, but it's definitely not dried out. I want something to smoke.
Okay. All right.
And so chips, they ask you to soak chips because if that's all you can use smoke with, you do that. I would prefer to find smaller chunks that have a little bit of moisture in them.
Okay.
That's going to add a bit more smoke flavor versus soaking them. It doesn't hurt. It's just not a thing that I like to do. I don't like to fool.
Okay. No worries. All right, go ahead. I think you were about to go to poultry.
Actually, we did poultry. I'm going to go to pork.
Pork.
Okay.
Yeah,
when I cook pork butts, I use a combination of pecan and cherry. Okay. You look behind, that's got a really nice pecan flavor. That cherry puts beautiful color on the meat. Yes. And of course, a lot of that's our rub, but it's a combination of our rub and our signature rub and our smoke.
Okay.
And I will usually when I use, now that's a big smoker. I could put a lot of meat on that smoker.
Yeah.
I could stand up inside that smoker. But that
we'll have to try that sometime.
Oh, I've been in there, trust me, cleaning it.
Oh God.
But I will tell you that that when I cook pork, we cook a ton of it at a time, and in that rub and that smoke, it really puts on a beautiful color. And
pecan
it's amazing.
And cherry.
Pecan and cherry for pork butts. Okay. Right. Now for ribs, pork ribs, same thing. Pecan and cherry.
Right.
Okay. Now brisket. Brisket is a big, heavy cut of meat.
So now we're talking beef.
We're talking beef. Yeah. I use oak and cherry. Okay. So I use oak and cherry for beef. I use pecan and cherry for pork. I use hickory for poultry. And that's the main combinations that I use in my restaurant and on the tour. Now, when I cook chicken, I told you I use hickory. Now, when I'm ready to turn my chicken in, I will light a little grill and get it hot. I'll throw a couple chunks of applewood, and then I'll close the vent, and then I'll put my chicken on there for about 5 minutes and just let it smoke. And so when those judges get that, it's got that fresh smoke on top of that glaze, and it's like a candied apple when they see that chicken. It's shiny.
I think you're giving away some trade secrets here, Dave.
I don't care. I can tell everybody how to do what I do, but they don't mean they can do it.
Oh, you're right about that. I've tried. Hey, I'm pretty good, right? I'm pretty good. I would say that I'm better than 90% of the guys at home, right? I think I'm really good, but part of that's because you've given me some of these tips. But I've come up to your restaurant and had your stuff. There's a lot more to it than just choosing the right wood and this and that, which is why we're having this whole segment on From the Pit, because you just can't cover everything at one time.
Right. And we love fantasy football, and we're going to talk fantasy football, but you know what? These things are fun little breaks from it. And why not? My goal is to help everybody become, king of their cul-de-sac.
Did you get all that? If not, make sure you head over to hammercast.com, subscribe, and join the Hammer Nation. Until next time, keep grinding.